In recent years, a particular meme has given a second life to one of the funniest shows on television. Even if you haven't seen the show, one accustomed to the internet could identify the scenario where this song is played. Curb Your Enthusiasm is one of the most groundbreaking shows on television. Some people can't get enough of Larry David's antics, while others have to turn the TV off due to the obnoxious actions of the protagonist. Yet, one thing can be said about Larry David is that he has mastered a procedure that can take the most relatable of situations and turn it into a comedy sketch. His humor is not universal, but to a particular demographic, he has nailed the comedic formula. He does this by using the same setup to payoff method in each episode, creating his own comedic blueprint that can be used time and time again. His formula consists of two elements. The first element is Larry's ability to pick up on the subtleties of everyday life that nobody is willing to talk about. The second element is the ability to use commonalities as conflicts. Let us look at my favorite episode, The Doll, to observe the tactics that Larry uses to utilize his crafting of comedy. But to first understand Larry David's method, let us discuss the monomyth, or let us discuss Dan Harmon, the creator of Rick and Morty, and his relationship to the protagonist of his stories. In 1949, Joseph Campbell published his seminal work, The Hero with a Thousand Faces, where he describes the concept of the monomyth. The core idea of this work is that all mythological heroes follow a similar journey regardless of their cultural origin. From the story of the Buddha to Prometheus, and even to the story of Jesus, he was able to trace a similar narrative of what creates a compelling story. Using the influence of Carl Jung in his study of archetypes, Campbell formulated the hero's journey into 12 individual stages. This universal story may work for the telling of a dramatic epic, but its essence can be applied to most narratives that have graced popular culture. Dan Harmon, the creator of Rick and Morty and Community, has created his own 8-step version of the hero's journey, focusing on the motivations of a protagonist. These are the 8 stages of Dan Harmon's hero's journey. Number 1. The character or protagonist begins their journey in a stage of comfort. Step 2. They need something or desire something. Stage 3. This need or desire causes them to leave their zone of comfort, resulting in Step 4, them having to adapt to this new environment. Step 5 is the protagonist getting what they want, but Step 6 is them paying a price for it. Step 7 is the protagonist's return to their familiar situation, and Stage 8 is them having changed due to the journey that they have taken. Though Larry's comedic style is perhaps one of a kind, the steps that his character takes is the same set of steps that protagonists have been taking for thousands of years. Except he's subverted the hero's journey, making the section where the hero has to venture into an unfamiliar territory common annoyances that people face in their everyday lives. And through Larry's inability to act like a normal person and cope with these everyday annoyances, he creates a sort of comedy that is unique. But let us look at the episode, The Doll, to understand how he utilizes this formula and how he subverts the hero's journey. The episode begins by Larry wanting to get a new show he's producing with Julia Louis-Dreyfus on ABC. He's exhausted all other options, and this network is the last one where he has not burned a bridge. Though it is apparent that the meeting is going fine, there's an obvious tension when dealing with a network executive. All of Larry's overreaching motivations of the episode stem from this tension, and this causes him to leave his zone of comfort to achieve his goals. The executive states that since Larry is now a part of the ABC family, it is expected of him to start attending ABC events. Though Larry doesn't want to attend these events, he knows that it is necessary for him to do so to get what he ultimately wants in the end. He's invited to see a screening of a documentary film, and Larry's new show is contingent upon his attending. Larry's motivational tension is the cause of most of the show's humor. The majority of the show consists of Larry setting himself up for failure and ultimately paying a price, resulting in himself becoming the butt of the joke. Though the tension with ABC's executive is the driving force of the story, Larry sets up several subplots that accumulate to the greatest comedic elements of the show. I will call these elements the punchline. Everybody is familiar with this punchline if you've seen the show, because this punchline is indicated with the now famous song. The first scene of the episode introduces the initial subplot. Jeff notices that Larry has been drinking a lot of water recently, and Larry states that this is due to an ambiguous medical condition. Larry's stubbornness causes him to carry the water bottle with him rather obnoxiously throughout the episode, leading to one of the first comedic scenes that we will see in one moment. Additionally, the first scene introduces the point of tension that Jeff and Susie are separated, and Susie will also be attending. The first scene concludes, and everybody who has seen the show before will most likely pick up on the fact that Larry has planted the seeds for comedic conflict later in the episode. The episode progresses, and we see Larry, Cheryl, and Jeff at the movie theater. Jeff makes a brief remark about his problems with Susie, and our characters begin to enter the theater. This is where we come across the keys to Larry's humor. A lady standing at the door tells Larry that he cannot bring his water bottle inside the theater. He goes on with some humorous arguing, but ultimately concedes due to the nature of authority. Larry concedes and chugs the water bottle, then enters the theater, and this is where we find the unique nature of the comedy within Curb Your Enthusiasm. For, as an audience, we discover that the lady at the door was not authority at all, but simply someone enforcing a rule when it was not her place to do so. Most normal people would probably accept that, well, some people are obnoxious in this world and move on with it, but that's not in the character of Larry David. Larry calls out the lady for her behavior, and the two begin a classic Larry versus somebody else banter that ends in Larry creating an enemy for himself. He gets what he wants, in the traditional sense, for he spoke his mind to the obnoxious lady, yet his inability to keep his mouth shut will get him into deeper trouble in the end. Following the screening of the film, Larry has to attend the executive's house party, where he runs across a problem. There is no lock on the bathroom door. Instead of acting like a normal person and asking Cheryl to guard the bathroom, Larry wants a bathroom with a lock on it and sneaks upstairs to find an alternative restroom. During his search, he finds the executive's daughter playing with the famous Judy doll in her room. After using the restroom, Larry begins to joke around with the executive's young daughter. On the surface, Larry is just acting like a nice guy. Yet, when one thinks about it, he should probably just get back down to the after party. But Larry is not a normal person. By trying to be nice and not thinking about the consequences, Larry cuts the hair of the Judy doll to give her a makeover. Any audience member would be cringing at the sight of this, because we know this will come back to bite him in the end. Larry again acts the way a normal person wouldn't, and this is going to result in some classic comedic scenes. Larry returns to the party, and Cheryl asks him to guard the door of the unlocked bathroom. Larry obliges and waits by the door until we hear the screaming from the executive's daughter from upstairs. She comes down to show that Larry has cut the hair of the doll, and humorous tension between Larry and the executive's wife begins. They enter into more of the show's classic banter as Larry tries to defend himself for his thoughtlessness. Through this sort of humor, he uses the comedic trope of digging himself deeper into the hole. The more he tries to defend himself, the deeper he digs himself, and the worse the situation he gets himself into. We will see this plot unfold through the story of the doll's hair. As Larry tries to defend himself for his actions, he leaves the bathroom door unattended, allowing the executive to walk in on Cheryl at an unflattering moment. At this point, Larry is in a very low place. The executive's wife hates him for cutting the doll's hair for seemingly no reason. Cheryl is mad at him for leaving her exposed, and Larry has no other network who will be willing to take on his show. He needs to replace the Judy doll's hair in order to achieve his ultimate goals in the end. To do this, Jeff tells Larry that his daughter has the same doll at her house. They go the following day to retrieve this doll, only to get caught by Susie, the current menace of the story, which causes Larry to shove the doll's head into his pants so that he could hide the fact that they are stealing the doll. The hair from the doll creates a rash on Larry's penis, and this will also come back to haunt him later. Larry brings the head to the executive's wife, seemingly solving the problem that he caused in the first place. Things get a little awkward as he asks to use the bathroom at their house, but due to his large amount of water consumption, the executive's wife is understanding. Everything seems like it is worked out, until he returns to find that Jeff is in trouble for decapitating his daughter's doll. Susie yells at the two in her classic Jewish mother fashion, creating a comedic scene where Larry is at fault. In one sense, Larry has jumped from one deep hole into another. He must once again go out of his comfort zone to resolve the problem that he created through his own actions. Returning to the executive's wife's house, he asks for the Judy doll's head that he's already cut so he can give this one to Susie. If this awkwardness is not comedic enough, Larry makes the situation worse by asking to use the bathroom in the house a second time. Thinking that this lock on the bathroom door has now been repaired by the repairman, he examines his now swollen penis, only for the lady who is standing by the door to walk in and see him touching himself. After having made her his menace, she tells the executive's wife, who hates Larry once more for being perverted, despite the effort he made to restore the doll's head. At this point in the script, Larry David has created many points of comedic tension that are only waiting to explode as he pays for his actions. The second night of the film screening has arrived, and Susie realizes what Larry and Jeff have done. Their efforts were futile, and Jeff is still in the doghouse. Larry and Cheryl leave to use the restroom due to Larry's extensive hydration. But, due to a terrible smell, Larry asks Cheryl to guard the door of the ladies' room, because he wants to use that room instead. But because Larry left Cheryl exposed the night before, as a sort of act of revenge, she leaves her post and allows Larry to face the consequences of his actions. As Larry is to leave the ladies' room, he realizes one thing. The same woman from the night before might try to prevent Larry from bringing his water into the theater, so he shoves the water bottle in his pants in the same manner he shoved the doll from the previous scene. Since Cheryl is no longer guarding the door, the executive's daughter walks in to find Larry in the woman's room. She hugs him, thanking him for fixing the Judy doll. And as she hugs him, she feels the water bottle in Larry's pants and runs out screaming, "Mommy, Mommy, that bald man's in the bathroom and there's something hard in his pants." This is, perhaps, one of the greatest comedic punchlines in television show history, and it is completely earned through the inept actions of Larry. Though others may have partially contributed to this, it was mostly the actions of Larry that led him to be in this position. Every plotline in the show was brought to a comedic climax, and Larry tries to escape through the window while the famous music begins to play. This is the genius of Larry David, where every episode in the series leads to his being caught in a situation such as this due to his own actions, and to signify that Larry's comedic arc is complete, the screen cuts to black, and the credits roll to that same old tune. The audience can only assume what is in store for Larry, and all we can do is laugh